Second, start the public meeting. All those in favor? Public meeting is in effect. We're discussing the traffic control and parking ordinance. This is the second time. It's been around for a while now, so are there comments or critiques from the public? From anyone?
I had comments.
I got a couple too. Go ahead.
Rick, go ahead.
You know, again, I looked at the downtown down there, and I think we're putting the cat in front of the horse. I said, I would be more apt to maybe go along with this after the road was done to see what really the problem is down there. The parking spots in there, I think you're gonna see a difference maybe. And again, but on the other hand, I got a real problem trying to enforce something. The next thing I can see coming, we're going to have a police department. Well, I'm gonna tell you, I don't think you guys got as much rights as you think, writing tickets or whatever. You know, I think that's,
I wouldn't be writing tickets, but
well, I know, we're gonna put a note on the car, please don't park here. You know what I'm gonna do with that note, if it was me? You know what I'd do with it. Anyways,
what'd you do with it?
I really won't tell you. No, I just think again, we're putting something into a place. I mean, we're going now from Town Beach to Main Street, Valley Lakes. The complaint came from Town Beach. Now we moved out of there to the Main Street. And it's basically 3 months a year. And yes, Sunday's probably the worst day there is. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind, it's the worst day of the, but, you know what, I'm not gonna be in favor of it, I can tell you right now.
Mr. Rice, you had some comments.
Yeah, first off, there was a little bit of discussion before other people go in. Right now, that's a state highway. And there are state laws that says you cannot park on 27 in the travel lane. And the state police, I'm sure, have gone through there, they don't ticket anybody, they don't say anything to anybody, nobody's called the state police. So, like Rick is saying, we had an issue which was town public. That's what really generated this discussion, which then involved Main Street. We have, Main Street is being rebuilt. Now, whether that's gonna solve that problem, probably not, but I bet it improves it. And as far as no parking ordinance, that part of it, after that is done, I would be in favor, if we still have issues, in favor of doing that if we can't deal with it. The other part that I'm really very opposed to is, this was it all started with no parking because of over on, by Town Beach on Long Pond. Now we have other issues that are included, that have been made part of the ordinance, such as, if you're gonna do a parade, now you're gonna have to do this, do this. The old ways of us doing business is gonna change, because now you're gonna have to officially fill out some forms. If you wanna close the road, to have a race, down to the public, down here at the library to support that. We're gonna have to fill, if we do these ordinances, you can't just turn a blind eye to things and yet make other people do it. So I think, I agree with Rick, I think this should be tabled for a future date, after that road construction is done. And if we still have an issue, we should do a parking ordinance for the Belgrade Lakes Village area. And that would be something to address the problems that we have up there. doesn't really impact the whole town or any other town, anybody else. It really is gonna, most of the impact is gonna be to our tourist industry. Because if we make the phone call now, like Denny was saying, they go up there and tow 20 cars. It won't be long, and word will be out. You won't have time much longer. That happens. And the thing is, go online, look at West Gasset, look at Booth Bay Harbor. Those are both on Route 27. West Gasset is also Route 1. You won't talk about traffic issues. Our issue is nothing compared to their problems that they have. And they actually have fatalities and stuff, not just accidents, they have fatalities. So I think everybody's experienced the same problem, and this ordinance doesn't really solve any problems. And I think another thing, and I'm only suggesting this, doing business the way we've been doing business, there's a precedent's been set. If we pass an ordinance and then we neglect something, we could really then be liable for something, because now if we get sued, we have a lot of protections. This is the way we've always done business. Home rule, we do have home rule applies, and we function. This issue, and I wouldn't wanna have to live up there and have to deal with it, but you know, it's what, 2 months in the summertime, maybe a little bit more than that, and it's a few days a week, 2 days, is it 2 days a week?
What, the farmer's market?
No, the real parking issue, is it? And if it's the farmer, if the farmer's market really is part of the real cause here that's impacting us more, maybe we should talk with those people and see if we can't locate it at a different spot rather than right downtown. And again, I'm just throwing this out as an idea. Has anybody thought about possibly moving the farmer's market up to the center of all seasons? That's just, that would move it out of downtown village, and yet some people would still have access to the great stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
excuse me.
No, I was just gonna say, I think there's some talk about moving it to the potential park that will be donated to the town, so that's sort of potentially up to you. But it seems like that might be something that's at least a little further out of town. But one of the things that as a business owner, my name's Kate Beals, I own the Village Inn. From a sustainability perspective and from a sort of a safety perspective, I know there's issues with people concerned about the congestion, but from a sustainability perspective, we need those parking spaces. We're already getting impacted ridiculously by the parking, the changes that are gonna happen in the town. We need every single one of those parking spaces. And
Parking places that we lose in Fullerton?
I
We're
think the
losing
problem
it.
is you don't have parking places. On your side of the road, going down through, you have people
People
parked out in the
illegally
middle.
park all over right now.
And that's
right?
happened forever.
And that's happened forever, but one of the issues, I think, or one of the benefits potentially is, and you ask anybody on, the DOT side, they'll tell you congestion is what slows traffic. If we're talking about widening the road, we've never had a traffic accident, we've never had an injury. And now we're losing all of this considerable parking spaces that's gonna be, I can't even tell you, extremely detrimental to businesses. We're talking about not just the growth, but the sustainability of the businesses, the scattered few businesses in Belgrade Lakes. So if we're losing, I don't know what the net total is now because the plans keep changing. We're losing a ton of parking. Just
Three
spaces.
spaces is what you're losing.
I'm sorry?
3 spaces, as I understand it, is
Well,
what they're gonna lose.
Here's
Again,
talking
people-
42.
Yeah, it's a net of something like, 20 to 40, it's been changing within the town, the plans that we've seen, but let me just kind of finish my point. The tourist season is what we are absolutely dependent on. We're a vacation land. We are, this is what we have to make our living. And people, you know, Maid and the Adlams 1800 house and everybody else, Maid's potentially leaving town if they lose the, you know, more and more parking. If we're gonna enforce an ordinance, you know, that's critical. If we're really talking about ticketing people and you're saying, hey, guess what, nobody's gonna come, everybody's gonna get the word, you're talking about closing businesses in the town. It's not a joke, and it's not, you know, it's a few people's sort of ideas about what's actually happening, but it's our livelihoods. So I just have to say, it should be, you know, again, if we're talking about enforcing an ordinance in the town, to my mind, that should go to a public vote. This shouldn't be something that's decided amongst 5 or 6 or however many people. You know, we're talking about the vitality of my business, about that sustainability. And again, we go back to, yes, it's congestion in the town, it's only a few days, you know, out of the week. Really, that's it. That's what we're dealing with. And again, that they're gonna, you know, again, from what I've heard from DOT, we're gonna have all of the parking sort of striped and designated. People are gonna do what they wanna do, but if we start enforcing things where, you know, there's no parking elsewhere, there's nothing available, businesses are gonna shutter and they're gonna close. And I'm telling you, we could have these wide sidewalks in this beautiful town with no businesses.
Arnie?
This is, it's the same subject, a little bit off subject. And I would appreciate Gary's input on this, but we was up there looking at Main Street, and Gary pointed out a house that's empty and really is not restored, apparently. And that lot really goes all the way back to the back street in the back, and would generate a lot of parking places. And my thought is that the group up there, the nonprofit group.
The Friends of Belgrade Lakes.
Yeah, but they seem to have the ability to get donations, and to me, that would be a property that the businesses should put all the effort in the world to purchase and make that into a real parking.
We've talked to them about that, and that's a sort of a tertiary concern of theirs. Their main concern, and this has been my sort of sword to stick in the sand ever since that organization was created, was it would be lovely to have brick sidewalks and pedestrian lighting and all of these wonderful things, but we could have beautiful sidewalks and beautiful lighting with no businesses, you know. So parking is the primary issue. Totally agree with you. We should, but I'm not gonna, steer the boat for somebody else's organization. That's been our sort of, refrain this entire time, is that parking is a critical issue. It's always been an issue for everyone in the summer. But there's that property, there's Lee Gill's property, the Marina Boat Storage property, which is even better. It's right in the center of town. He's open to potentially selling that. But their primary concern is sort of beautification of the town. It's not really parking. And I've spoken to everyone on that committee, and they're doing a great job, and they've raised a ton of money, and now they're sort of focusing, they've gotten to their goal for lighting and brick sidewalks, and now they're turning their attention to parking, but it was never a primary concern. And from every business owner's perspective, and I'm speaking for everyone in the town who owns businesses, parking has been our issue, and it's a critical concern. So if we're talking about dragging people out of town and taking business away from the few businesses in the town, that's just not the way to kind of get it done. It's just a bad idea.
Yes.
I think if you drive into any small village, there's a touristy village in the state of Maine, you're gonna find congestion where it narrows down into a narrow area. I would like to see the town work more towards being part of the solution of the problem, working with these groups, trying to find a place for a public parking. And also, it seems to me that, I don't know, we just passed this commercial ordinance And, you know, even though we voted down zoning, we got this commercial ordinance. And in this ordinance, it designates the village area as business growth and general development. And I don't see how this parking ban is promoting that at all. It's like a double jeopardy. It's just like, we need an ordinance, so we're gonna make one. And I'm not getting how this parking ordinance will help general development and business growth in the village areas where it's designated after we voted down zoning.
Danny?
Well, what I want to say is, essentially, this ordinance doesn't mandate a parking ban in the village. In fact, it doesn't have to speak to the parking issue in the village. Where this came from, just to give a little bit of history here, is I received a complaint that was, a single complaint that, as I understand it, was composed of 35 people complaining to this other person, or more, I don't know. So
So
I
it's
received this complaint about parking at the Town Beach parking lot, all right? So I looked into seeing what we could do, because someone had commercialized, in other words, taken that, at times, not all the time, had taken that parking spot over for his guests in his Airbnb house. And his guests were parking there, so there were no parking places in that area for people that wanted to go to the beach. So I looked into the issue, and I said, well, perhaps we can just put a sign up that says your vehicle will be towed if in fact you aren't using the beach. However, we could enforce that. So I was just looking for solutions. Called up DOT and they said, you might be subjecting your town to some liability issues if you tow a car without a parking ordinance, right? Traffic regulation and parking ordinance. So then I called up MMA and talked to some of those folks. They said a similar thing. So I came back to the board and said, here's what we can and can't do. So we looked at developing a parking ordinance. And then the road closure issue came up, which was all part of this traffic thing. Someone asked me if we could put on the board for the board to close a road for a certain period of time. Found out that we don't have the authority without an ordinance to close a road. So I raised that issue to the board, right? And then the whole issue of snow maintenance, winter maintenance came up. So basically, I combined these into an ordinance based on what I was hearing and what I was advising to advise the board. And that's how it comes about. Now, the parking issue itself, the board could say, all we want to do is limit the parking in the town beach parking lot. Put a restriction there. They don't have to do anything else. It's up to the board to set their traffic parking
So why
where
do we
they
have
want.
to do that?
Huh?
Why do we have to do that? And you're telling me this ordinance is being brought on by one person?
No. I'm talking about an
35
issue.
people involved.
I'm
Well,
talking
And
about
you
an
have
issue,
those
whether it's 1 or
documented?
30.
It's one Airbnb person, so this is being developed by somebody
And
else.
then hearsay.
So then it's progressing into the town and affecting businesses to this degree where you're really talking about sustainability. I mean, it's
No, I hear
really
you.
serious.
I mean, I'm just telling you that the issue arose from the complaint about the beach.
I
all right?
totally get where it
So
comes
that's,
from.
Okay,
and
let's
what,
not have a conversation here, let's let Denny complete.
and so what the board can do is say, well, we want to solve the problem at the beach. In order for me to ask a sheriff or a state cop to come in and do something with that parking issue, I have to have an ordinance. I have to have, I don't, the town has to have an ordinance. So that's, the board could say, where we're restricting parking is at the town beach parking lot, period. Then if they want someplace else down the road, they could do that sometime down the road, the ordinance is there. They don't have to do anything with the road through the village, period, as far as parking goes.
Can that be
Yes.
specified in the ordinance?
The board has the authority to
Because-
put parking zones where they want to put them. If they don't want to put one down there, it won't go into effect because they won't do it. I mean, this whole issue about the downtown came up because there's been a lot of concerns generated by the construction, the sidewalk and all of that. And there are a lot of assumptions being made, but really the board has control over the parking places they want to set, restrict in the town.
Mr. Barrett?
Couple of things. Number one, there's a lot of talk of what my colleagues and others foresee down in the future. There's been no talk of the police department. There will be no talk of the police department, not in the near future. The parking ordinance has 7 restrictions on parking. 1, can't park on a sidewalk. I don't think that's unreasonable. Can't park in front of a public or private driveway. Again, it's not unreasonable. Within an intersection, can't stop your car and park in the middle of an intersection. Upon any place where official signs or markings prohibit stopping or parking. We're not gonna be putting signs up in a parking stall. That's why they're there, that's why they're marked as stall, you can park there. Within 20 feet of a fire hydrant. That right now is a problem down by the bridge. Upon any bridge or elevated structure upon a highway, can't stop in the middle of a bridge. In the travel lane of a street in a manner to obstruct traffic, you can't park your car in the middle of a travel lane. Those are the 7 instances where we could do something. Now, we haven't decided what kind of enforcement we'll take. What we've talked about is having this ordinance on the books so that if we encounter a problem, then we can address the problem when it comes up. But we need to have this on the books in the meantime. There are other sections that we've talked about in the past pertaining to snow removal, which at that time, depending on what the rest of the board wants to do, but at that time I said I would recommend taking that section out for the time being. Again, if that becomes a problem, we can always put it back in. Well, the board can meet and amend the ordinance or do away with it, or do whatever. State law leaves it to the board, the select board, in fact, prohibits taking it to the town. And the reason for that, as I understand it, is because issues of safety, they don't want it to become a popularity contest. They feel that the boards will have a better feeling, better handle on those things. For better or worse, that's the reason. I don't think anybody on the board wants to do anything to really to hinder business. I mean, you folks are very valuable to the town, you're valuable to the people that come to visit. I've been known to go to the places down there myself. But there is a problem there. Whether it's as bad as Wiscasset, I don't know, I don't care, we're not talking about Wiscasset. Maybe that means we have a better chance of fixing it than Wiscasset has. But that, anyway, that's what I see, the reason for, this, one of the reasons for this ordinance. I think we need to have something on the book to handle the various contingencies that might come up.
Yes.
I have a question. We live right across from the old antique shop, and we have people park on our sidewalk, which is almost right on our lawn. And when people and kids come along, they either go out in the road to go by the cars, or run all over our lawn with the dogs, and that's constant. I'm always parking on the sidewalk and almost on the lawn.
That's one of the things that we're trying to prevent from
I
happening.
just wonder what we do about it.
And it is dangerous. You do have to walk between the
Yeah.
traveling cars and the parking lots. And if you, even if that sidewalk, even if you get to walk on that sidewalk, it's not in the best shape, I'm sure you know.
You had a question or a comment?
Yeah, you know, in the last week, I've watched a dozen windmills blades go down through the town, with no problem.
They have 2 police escorts.
Yeah.
They do.
So that means emergency vehicles can get through.
Yeah, that's.
If you just put an ordinance on the books and you leave it wide open, where are you gonna put the signs? That leaves the signs wherever you wanna put them, so we're still up in the air about where the parking can happen.
That's,
I'm-
yeah, that's the issue.
And then, you know, if you just put it on the books and say, and then come in and start plopping signs everywhere, well, then we're right into what we don't want. And I think, again, the town needs to focus more on working with these groups and providing a solution so we can prosper and move forward and still clear the streets of parking.
Ernie?
I just, to address parking on the sidewalks, they're gonna be granite curbs. The new wants to
Yeah,
slow it
yeah,
down, that
yeah.
can really alleviate that. And no matter what ordinance we pass, it's not gonna stop that right now.
That won't alleviate it.
As far as parking in front of a public or private driveway, that is against the state law. All state police, if they're doing that, they will come and deal with it. Within an intersection, that's against the state law. We don't need an ordinance for the state laws to be enforced. And again, a fire hydrant, you cannot park within so many feet of a fire hydrant. That is state law. And if somebody is doing that, and the department has indirectly, I should say, spoken to that issue, and they feel that they would just remove the vehicle and they wouldn't worry about it if they had to get to the fire hydrant. So, again, my view is, and I believe Rick has stressed this, it's just unnecessary. We have done things by home rule all these years. These ordinances will not solve the problems that we have. And as one of your representatives, I really believe that that new highway is gonna really make a big difference going through that community. And hopefully in the future, there will be some new parking developed up there. So I know this board would be more than willing to work with whatever organization to discuss that issue.
Marie, you had a comment?
No, it's all right.
Yeah.
You're still gonna have one problem, and I don't think you'll ever change it because you hurt the people's business, that down day store. Now, everybody's gotta stop there to let people buy one way or the other. That is the narrowest place in town, and it's not gonna change with the new road, unless they tear the houses down across the street.
Yes, you have a comment?
I was just gonna say, exactly to your point, I mean, all of the issues that we seem to be having, you know, can be enacted or enforced by calling the state police. So what is the purpose of creating an ordinance that's amorphous, that's up in the air, that's, you know, based on somebody's beach parking? It just doesn't make sense because it's threatening, again, the sustainability of business. And it's not just our profitability, it is how we survive. So it doesn't make sense to me if we can, you know, people can pick up the phone and say, obviously you're parked on the sidewalk or in front of a hydrant or in front of somebody's driveway. I mean, call the state police, that's what we've always done. I just don't understand.
I just want to kind of, say something to spoke right off about the police department. We've already had a police department in this town. There was a grant that was given to the town many, many years ago, and it didn't work. I mean, it just didn't work.
I'll just say one thing, I'm not gonna say anything after this, but
You sure?
I promise the rest of the meeting.
Is that a promise?
I'm when we go to the select board, and there'll be a motion to move forward on this subject. I'm gonna make a motion that, if I'm hearing Denny right, that this board can state that we can pass a ruling that you cannot park at Long Pond Beach area.
If you have a traffic ordinance.
If you have, well, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not voting.
Sure, I thought you
Any more comments?
I thought the board had the power to say, hey, that's an area where you can know,
Mr. Merkins?
Yes, I agreed to entertain discussion about this ordinance on Denny's advice, because if we have a problem, and we do have a problem, however minor it is, there's really nothing we can do about it without an ordinance. And I've heard lots of talk about this being a parking ban, and oh my gosh, it's gonna lead to a police department, and so on and so forth, and I think that's just going off half-cocked. This is an ordinance, and Denny's right, and I think we can narrow it as much as we want, we can widen it as much as we want, we can change it in the future. I agree with Michael in that we don't have a sidewalk, a real sidewalk. We have sort of, this new project in the downtown is gonna, create sidewalks. We don't have them yet, we haven't been through a winter with them yet, and I'd be in favor of probably striking that sidewalk provision from the ordinance. But without an ordinance, you don't have any chance to enforce, serious violations, and it's really gonna be the serious violations that get enforced. Because, I've heard my colleague, the other Ernie, say that, we haven't had a problem, if we have a problem, then we can create something like this. Well, we've had a problem, so that's why we are creating this. And I can't believe it's gonna be, we're gonna run around and, put notes on people's windows or anything like that. It's just that if we have serious acute violations that require us to act, this is going to give us the template that, or, the teeth that we can act with. Because without this, we can put signs up at any parking place we want, but there's nothing backing it up. So this, and this isn't, I'm not in favor of creating ordinances, requiring people to mow their lawn certain heights or anything like that. I mean, that's wasteful and foolish, but, our last meeting when we were discussing this a little bit, we went on to discussing, building codes and ordinances and how, we've got some violations there, and thank God we have building codes so we can enforce violations. And there's some serious violations that are that need to be looked at, coming right up. And then the other thing about, we're gonna be looking at nuisance properties, there's certain properties in town that have fallen by the wayside, either due to bank foreclosure or what have you, and they're unsafe and they need to be addressed. And in that one case, I heard some of my colleagues say, well, the Belgrade people would welcome a beefing up of that ordinance, an enforcing of that ordinance. Well, thank God we have that ordinance so that we can enforce it if we need to. I mean, if somebody parks 3 inches over a painted line, I don't think we're gonna, there's not gonna be a lot of enforcement there. But if somebody is consistently parking in front of a fire hydrant, in a handicap zone, fire zone, other unsafe practices that come to us as a complaint, this ordinance gives us a chance to do what we're supposed to do. And so that's my take on it.
So who exactly is gonna enforce that?
Well,
Please be recognized before you speak.
That's-
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
So who exactly is gonna enforce that?
Yeah,
Well, it's in the ordinance, it can be enforced by the sheriff, it can be enforced by the state police, it can be enforced by.
then you're gonna have to
municipal
call them
officers.
to come in town.
Let them finish.
Again, please raise your hand if you have comments. Yes.
Then you're gonna have to call them to come in town. By the time they get there, the person that didn't make the violation's gonna be gone.
Possibility.
Possibility, but, and if somebody
To me, it's a
parks
waste
5
of-
minutes in a.
To me, it's a waste of time.
Yes.
And why is one complaint striking an ordinance? I mean, there's a lot of us in this town, and one complaint strikes an ordinance?
Right.
And I've been down there several times, it hadn't been a vehicle there, several nights.
Yes. So there's one person that's unhappy in this town, and that strikes an ordinance.
No, not one person. Denny?
Do we have a
Look
list?
at, let's go back to the history. I get a complaint that no one can park at the beach because a business owner of an Airbnb home has their customers parking in the beach lot. Actually, this complaint occurred before I even became town manager in June, right? So what happened was, someone asked the road commissioner to put up a no parking sign on the other side of the road because people that couldn't park in the beach lot for parking in an area that restricted travel down that road. So safety vehicles, fire equipment couldn't get down that road. So they put a parking sign up there to prevent that. So now you had customers, clients, citizens, who were trying to use the beach that have no place to park. I go to a rec board meeting, all right? One of the recreation board members, someone like you, you're a member of a board, you know, so you come in and you're representing people that talk to you. He said he had a complaint, he actually wrote the board, said, could you put this on the agenda, because we're getting all kinds of complaints about this thing. So he had 35 people, he said to me, don't know how many people it was, I only know what he said, that complained to him and they wanted him to do something because he was a member of the Belgrade government, right? Well, he was a member of the rec board. So he brought it to me, I took it to the board, we looked into it. When we looked into it, we found out there was little we could do unless we had a Belgrade parking ordinance. Ernie's brought up the fact, which is true, that if you're blocking the travel way, right? If you're blocking the travel way, so if your car is out halfway into the road, you can call the state police. That happens every weekend down in the village. No one's ever called the state police, all right? State police will enforce that restriction. My understanding is that the state police and the sheriff, unless the town has a traffic ordinance, won't enforce parking laws in the state of Maine. That's my understanding, and that's what I've read, so that's an issue. We can get someone in here to explain it to us if we want. But that's where it originated from. So it's not one person, it's a number of people going to a board that represents, they're supposed to be represented by it, so.
Larry?
I'm just curious, did the issue get addressed with the business owner whose patrons were parking in that? Did anybody make an attempt to address it with them, that this space is used for people who go to the beach, who,
Correct.
you know,
So-
did anybody address it with that?
No, I had a letter written, ready to go until we went into these other issues, and so we stalled it until.
So it never got addressed at that level?
Not at that level yet, Mary.
Yeah. Okay. I have another.
Yes.
So just to recap, it seems like, from what I'm understanding, hearing, that all of these issues that we potentially are having can be addressed and are legally addressed by calling the state police. So parking halfway into a road, parking by a fire hydrant, parking in front of somebody's driveway. So we already have the enforcement capability, from my understanding, from what I'm hearing, to take care of that. And what is the purpose of, to me, it's kind of like this Pandora's box thing. We open this, you know, sort of free-for-all ordinance while you're all sitting on the board. Who's to say who's gonna be here 5 or 10 or 15 years from now? Who's gonna wanna enforce parking and really impact the businesses and the livelihoods of the people living in the town? It just seems like if we already have, you know, the law is in place in state police, like it's a phone call, right? Well, I just don't understand what the purpose of this ordinance is that's an amorphous ordinance.
Danny?
My understanding, and I looked it up here, says there's main parking laws, there are laws, right? And it says, it tells you how illegal it is to park in various places and stuff like that. Again, the attached penalties and intricacies associated with the above violations will fluctuate based on the town and or jurisdiction you're in. So, according to what I read, to enforce parking within a town, according to what I read, you're required to have a traffic or a parking ordinance, a traffic ordinance, or whatever you want to call it, but you're supposed to have rules in place. So the things that you're talking about, parking halfway out the road, that's blocking a travel way. You can, yes, that's, and Ernie raised that board to me today, and I said, I'll check right into that, because I wasn't hearing what Ernie had said earlier on. And he's right, you can call the state police. I was down there just, I think it was 2 or 3 weekends ago. Went to the farmer's market, right? You had a line backed up for a half a mile or more because you couldn't get a tractor and trailer down through there.
You can, though, is the thing, you can. I mean, people do. They do, you know.
They do,
they're-
yeah.
They do, but it slows up traffic until traffic.
Yeah, but let me tell you, congestion actually, it's less accidents.
No, I hear you.
You ask
I
DOT,
don't
and that's the
disagree.
first thing they'll tell you, is
Absolutely.
it's actually safer.
Okay,
Safer,
Mary,
and they can get through.
you have,
Oh, Dennis just happened to mention that, that individual said 35 people had complained. Do we have that in writing from those 35 people?
No, we haven't.
And did they sign
Yes.
anything that
I
suggests,
thought I explained
okay, all right.
that. I got
So
one
there's-
thing through the record.
there is a problem. From my perspective, there's a problem here. The other day, I tried to get from Union Church down to the old Webster House. That's probably a 30-second walk. Took me 10 minutes, couldn't get there. There was a truck parked on the only pathway through that town. Just, it was parked, it wasn't parked, it was sitting there, waiting for somebody to come up the other direction. Now, in my mind, you have people living in that town that probably in some cases are gonna have transportation. You couldn't have got an emergency vehicle down there. You couldn't have.
As-built, yeah, I just.
It was just really, really bad. And the reason it was is because people were illegally parked. Yes,
So I live in the village, and it's never taken me that long. I don't believe that for a second. And also, is there any documented thing saying that an emergency vehicle could not get through?
No, I'm just telling you.
And
what
it's
I'm
not
sure.
documented with the people complaining, so we have one person bringing this to us.
No. Again, no one. that
This
I-
is a serious thing. This is a major ordinance, and you're flying off the cuff?
No,
It
I'm not
is.
flying off the cuff.
this is the second or third time this has been brought up. This is the second public meeting. This isn't off the
And it got
cuff.
denied the first time. You waited until another select person was on to bring it back up so it'd get voted in.
Please,
Please, first of all, that's allowable under the bylaw, okay, for the board, for any member to bring something back up. Having said that, I'm not talking, when you talk about one person complaining, it has to do with the beach parking lot. all right?
Correct, and we don't even know those 35 people.
No, I don't.
We're
know
going
that.
off by some hearsay.
I get complaints all the time about issues of non-compliance in this town.
Do you document them?
I document them when I get them, and we're taking action on a number of them right now. The fact that you hear one person complain, and someone tells me that 35 people are behind it, am I supposed to say, no, you're wrong, I'm not gonna listen to you? So I bring it to the board. That's where the action starts, all right? Certainly, this isn't, look, I'm not here trying to force traffic parking regulations down anyone's throat. I'm trying to address a problem that came to me, and I brought it to the board, and they're trying to struggle through this, all right? It's not, they're not trying to force anything on you. Believe me, they're not trying to force anything on you, nor am I. We're trying to resolve issues.
yes.
From my understanding and just speaking to people who live in the town, Bill Pulsiver, who's not here, might be able to shed some light on this. I've never, ever heard of emergency vehicles not being able to get through the town during the periods. There's, you know, you might see a two tractor trailers stop and one go. I live in the village also. You know, they're always going through, but people are being courteous. And again, DOT will tell you that's the safest way to maintain, you know, it's a tiny little village. We're in this little isthmus. We're lucky to have this beautiful, historic, historic village, right? And it's the road's getting widened, and now we're saying, sorry, businesses, you're gonna lose all this parking, and then we're talking about, no, really, with the road construction, that's what's gonna happen, Denny.
No, I'm not.
And then, honestly, if we're gonna say at the same time, we're just gonna create an ordinance where you can literally pick up the phone if somebody's doing something illegal, parking in front of a driveway, and call the state police. What's the point of the ordinance? I don't get it, but really just impacting the businesses. It just doesn't make any sense to me, you know? And again, the safety is better managed with the congestion, and it's gonna be better, it's gonna be wider.
Michael, you were first.
I can tell you, I have witnessed the ambulance having trouble getting to the Tripp's house. When Mrs. Tripp they had to call an ambulance for Mrs. Tripp. Thank goodness she didn't have a heart attack. Because the delay in getting the vehicle there, and then the town rescue wagon right after it, could have been deadly for her. It was a delay, instead of being able to pull up and get into the driveway and pick her up, they were delayed, and it blocked traffic They had to move traffic out of the way to get down, and they wangled the way in and out. That's one instance. There have been instances that I've also witnessed, where you have two semis coming at each other, and they can't get by each other. Instead, they sat there and just blew horns at each other for 5 minutes. So there are instances, there are others, and I'm sure if we talk to other people, and if the people on the street could probably tell us about instances like that. It is a problem, and I would like to say, Mr. Chairman, that we're just spinning our wheels here right now.
Unless it's something new that you have, yes.
Well, it's like I said before, that down the day store, you're not gonna change it. That's a bottleneck there with the post office and day store, across the street from one another. There's been more accidents backing in with one another at the post office than you shake a stick at. And you're not gonna change it, because they got no place to make the road any different.
Yes.
I happen to live down by the beach. I've lived there for 30 years myself. First of all, I don't think that sign that you were referring to, Denny, was put up recently.
Well,
I can remember that
That's what I understood.
years ago.
Okay, that may be.
Secondly, these are problems that are isolated pretty much to the 2 months of the year, maybe 3 months at the very outside. I'm sure there are isolated incidents where there have been problems to get or you can envision a problem, getting an emergency vehicle through. I don't see how you're going to do anything with this ordinance to alleviate those situations. They're going to arise, they're going to be circumvented, problem's going to go away. As far as the beach is concerned, I know of the property where the parking is a problem. That can be dealt with, but there are many times during the year that Lakeshore Drive has parked cars both sides over various portions of it, when there are major events and so forth. And the beach itself is not a parking problem, except for the fact that spaces may be used. The fact that they may be used by person A instead of person B, that's not an issue for an ordinance.
More discussion? Look for a motion to close the public hearing.
So be it.
Go ahead.
So am I under the understanding that the snow shoveling part of the ordinance is gonna be eliminated?
No, we
From
haven't
any
seen- we haven't
discussion?
voted on it yet. That's my plan to recommend that section be taken out.
Because that's a
Have you
whole
brought up-
nother discussion.
Yeah.
Have you brought up
Along
about the
with-
shoveling yet?
We haven't even talked about that, we've only been on the traffic.
Greg, at the last meeting, they talked about it quite a bit, which is why I started thinking maybe that part should be removed for the time being.
All right, let's get a motion to go out of public.
Been made, seconded,
Made and seconded, all in favor? Public meeting is closed.
make a motion to go back, we'll go into a regular board meeting.
Second, moved and seconded, all those in favor? We're in our normal meeting now, and the first order of business is the traffic control parking ordinance vote. I'll look for, yes, Mr. Barrett.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance as written, with the exception that section 3C, which is sidewalk snow removal, be removed.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
Moved and seconded, 3C be removed. Any discussion? Yes,
Hand up.
yes, Mr. Rex.
I have.
If it is passed, which I agree with, emergency parking, B. Any vehicle parked in violation of the restrictions imposed in section 2A, 2B of this ordinance shall be towed at the owner's and/or operator's expense to an unauthorized location. I think that should be an authorized location.
Which section is that?
It's
Emergency
B3.
B?
And no-
Okay, yes, that's a,
There's a typo.
Well, it just needs to be.
yeah, it's got to be corrected if it passes.
Any more discussion from the board? Yeah,
On this, you're talking about shoveling the sidewalks, clearing the sidewalks, is that,
talking about leaving it out.
is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, leaving that section out.
Beg pardon?
I propose that we leave that section out, so.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Bruce in the back.
Yes,
I trust my board 100%, you guys all know that. I think any ordinances in this town should go to town vote. I don't think the board should be voting on it. I think it should be more than 5 people voting on an ordinance in this town. Everybody knows that ordinances in this town is a very tough on the people. People get upset over it. That's just one of my opinions. That's just, how I voice it. I don't care either way, but I just think it should be a townwide vote, like most other stuff that gets pushed to townwide vote.
And I agree with him.
discussion from the board. Ernie?
I thought that was kind of covered by Michael's statement earlier, that safety-related ordinances such as this, which largely has a safety component to it, aren't to be popularity contests in terms of, town voting, and that's what we're here for. So that's why it's not primarily a referendum item at a town meeting.
Okay, I think we have a motion on the floor and a second to take out the snow shoveling, am I correct?
Yes.
And the unauthorized, make it unauthorized. Correct? Any more discussion from the board?
I have just one other thing. All I want to say, I hope this board stops and listens to the people that came here that are very concerned about the board doing an ordinance, and that the ordinance is not going to solve any safety issues. So if that's an excuse to vote for this ordinance, that's not an excuse. We've had these issues eons, they're not gonna go away. You can have an ordinance. All I'm gonna say is, you're opening the door to this town to a lawsuit. If I park somewhere illegally and you don't enforce it on me, or these people park illegal, but if you enforce it on me, I will be suing the town for discrimination. And I'll have just cause, and I will win, because you have an ordinance that is to be enforced. So if you're gonna pass an ordinance, you better be prepared to enforce it. And then we'll see what happens. But I just think it's wrong. The people that are here tonight, the majority of the people here tonight, clearly stated to me, they're very opposed to this ordinance. So you do whatever you wanna do to suit yourselves, but I'm listening to the people that put me here to represent them. That's my view.
Any more discussion? All those in favor of removing the snow shoveling and changing to authorize, raise your hand. It's 3. Those opposed?
What are we voting on?
We're just voting on removing.
amendments.
That section.
I'm not gonna vote on any of that stuff, so, because I'm gonna vote right down.
You can vote against it.
All right, I'll vote against.
So we had
I'll vote on it, too. I'm opposed.
had 2 against, 3 for. All right. On the motion, in the initial motion, or we haven't got a motion to pass this ordinance.
I made that motion.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Oh, you already have it, okay. Moved and seconded that the ordinance be passed with those,
Hand up, going in.
yes.
On the safety, public safety and up there, has anyone checked with the fire chief or the rescue chief to find out if they had any issues going through emergency equipment?
The fire chief was here.
Doesn't matter.
I can tell you.
I can tell you, I mean, not to speak out of turn, I can tell you, I drive emergency equipment almost 2 or 3 times a week. I go through the lakes, mutual aid calls, I go over one of our biggest trucks right here in the depot. I don't have a problem going through in the middle of the summer. I know, not speaking out of turn for Ricky, but they drive dump trucks down there. Kevin Hollis drives dump trucks down through there. I never hear him complain about it. I still think this should be a town vote on any ordinance in this town.
Okay, we're back to the initial. We're back voting on the traffic control and parking ordinance. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? All those in favor? 2, all those opposed?
Thank you, board.
Thank you,
No?
appreciate it. Thank you for listening.
Don't thank the board. This is a split board right now. There are certainly reasons to have ordinances in a town. Wiscasset has a parking ordinance. So does Bar Harbor. They still have problems. You don't enforce, I voted against it just because there seems to be a fair amount of town comments that they don't want it. It's the only reason I voted against it. What I'd like to see is if beyond putting that road in, doing the road, if it doesn't alleviate the problem, this will come up again. And at that point, we'll probably pass an ordinance. Denny?
Just for me to make a comment, I want people to understand that when I propose things, it's trying to resolve problems. It's not trying to create problems. There are problems out there. The reason for the debate on the board and bring it to the board and having these meetings is so that those issues can be discussed. There's no issue for me to push anything or not. I'm trying to manage the town within the laws that, as I read them and I'm told what they say. So this was the origin of this whole thing, so you should know that. And I still think it's appropriate to have a traffic ordinance, and that would be my recommendation to the board, but I understand where the board is, so it's not gonna happen. So
All right.
I would like to thank the people that came, I know some of them that spoke up, shared their concerns, and hopefully we have resolved some of your issues, knowing that we have this project that's gonna hopefully help the situation.
Yeah, I'd just like to mention that I think when the road project is completed next year, you're gonna have a new tight traffic point across from the grill because of the way they're proposing to tee the intersection there.
Still not gonna change.
And, you know, as things are today, a lot of people who go to the grill tow a boat, and they like to park along West Road because it's either difficult or impossible for them to park in the parking lot. So what you might want to think about doing is and Lakeshore Drive and potentially the grill and the village are not the only points in town where there are potential parking issues. It might be wise to start trying to think ahead and plan for an ordinance that actually makes sense to take care of real problems. And
Thank you. Mid-Main Chamber comments.
Okay.
I take it this is a request to join?
Remember at the last meeting, the Mid-Main Chamber of Commerce came in and proposed that, you know, they gave their pitch, and they proposed that we join. You postponed about, from what I understand, you said essentially, well, let's think about it, and then we'll talk about it at some future time. So I put it on the agenda for that purpose, because my understanding was you didn't want to take a vote on whether or not you were going to join it that night or not. So that's where this is coming from.
I kind of made my mind up pretty quick, but I just don't think we ought to be taking taxpayers' money and doing something like this. What benefits are gonna do to the town of Belgrade, the taxpayers? If the businesses wanna join this, great, it's good advertising for them. But as far as the town of Belgrade doing, I don't think that's a wise move to use taxpayers' money for this.
How many employees?
We have, I guess they put us between 11 and 20, I think.
So 390 was what it would cost us.
Well, except for board member Mike Barrett said to me, we're a nonprofit, why aren't we in the nonprofit area? And I said, I don't know. So the nonprofit is 195 plus 430 times each employee.
Thank you, Town Manager Dennis.
Well, I don't want to talk about it.
All right, is there a motion to join this? Looks like it's gonna die for lack of a motion.
Lack of a-
Ernie, you had something else to say?
Well, when that lady was here last time, we asked her, I mean, there was a certain amount of advertising with the town.
Yeah, there are certain benefits that she replied to, there's advertisement, there's, my thinking about why they would like us to join is that perhaps by getting more communities to enter into their chamber, even though it's at low cost, they can make a bigger impact on other businesses and bring in more tourism. And she was talking about the bass fishing as one of the examples, but that's just my interpretation of what she said. So it was meant to be an economic growth issue.
Is there a motion to join it? Seeing none, let's go on to the next item.
I guess we should pass on
Arnie, were you gonna make a motion?
it. No, I guess not.
I sort of agree with Rick in that this is generally a business thing. Business is joining.
I mean, it was kind of obscure when
Yeah.
she answered my question last week, or last time we met.
Trouble is, if you do it, I mean, if we do it, every business in town will have to represent us. And I don't think you wanna do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, under new business, appointment of Samuel Hudspeth to Board of Appeals. Is Mr. Hudspeth here?
I don't see him
Let's keep
here.
that because I have several things to say. I thought we had agreed nobody would serve on these boards unless they had a Navy background.
Well, I
He's
think
an Air
that,
Force guy.
well, that's the exact reason why, he's important. That's discriminatory. And what's the name?
Yeah, that's right.
No, Mr. Hudspeth did call today, and he didn't say he was coming, but he said he was interested. And I believe this was passed through the Board of Appeals.
Yeah.
And we absolutely need appeals.
Yes.
So,
I'll make a motion to table it, because the policy has been the first time appointed, they have to be here.
Okay.
And that's been,
I should have made that clear, I wasn't.
I'll second that.
yeah, that's been the policy, unless we want to change that.
no. Moved and seconded. All those in favor of
Table.
those opposed? 4-1. Mike Keno.
Mike,
I'd like to move approval of Mike Keno, and we know Mike Keno. He's on several boards now.
I think he was on the board.
He's on the cemetery board.
Cemetery board.
He is,
he's
wasn't he on
also
the
on-
planning board? I actually,
No, he's on a
oh, he
dance.
was at one
I think
time.
he's on dance committee, I think. Anyway, he's on at least one board. But I'd like to move his approval.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor? Looks like it's unanimous. The draft of the referendum items is our next item of business. We have 3.
Right, and just as an opener on this, I put these on because what we want to do is start the process, as you remember, we laid out a timetable for the RSU petition process. And in that, we were talking about the end of August, where we start moving this forward. These are other referendum questions that would have to go to a public hearing in any case. So as we move the petition forward, I thought it was appropriate to put all 3 together into one package. And that's why I put these items on for your approval of the language, and I know that there's some changes that are being suggested.
Well, this is the change here.
Well, that's a change that,
Yeah, that's a change that I'm proposing for Article 3.
3, okay. Article 1, do you favor filing a petition for withdrawal from the Board of Ed Directors? With the withdrawal with the board? Let me redo that. Do you favor filing a petition for withdrawal with the Board of Directors of Regional School Unit 18 and with Commissioner of Education authorizing withdrawal committee to expend $15,000 and authorizing the Town of Belgrade Board of Select Persons to issue notes in the name of the Town of Belgrade or otherwise pledge the credit of the Town of Belgrade in the amount not to exceed $15,000 for this purpose, yes or no?
I have one comment on that. And we're trying to get a firm $15,000. So can that number be adjusted before it goes to vote, or maybe, if we needed to go like 20,000?
I asked that question, and my understanding is that we should put forward essentially what was in the petition itself, and that if we need more money, the board would have to go out and get that money. That's what my understanding is.
As long as that option is there from a very reliable source, Northport was $15,000.
It was just, that was the estimate given, yeah.
Well, that's what it costs them to do.
Yeah, I understand that. But when I asked the question, because I asked a specific question, I said, look, we're being told that it's gonna cost $15,000. I don't know whether it will or not, but if it goes over that, what happens? Because they recommended to me that you pretty much have to go with what's in the petition. And the person I spoke with essentially said, then you would have to go and provide more money to finish the withdrawal.
I just didn't want to have something started and we run out of money if it got approved to go through that process.
And I will have that in writing before the actual public hearing.
Any more comment on Article 1?
That's good. I have comments, but I'm not going to say anything, because it really, this is just the article.
This is the article, yep. That's what they're gonna vote on.
Yeah, no, that's fine, it's unfortunate that a lot of people think this is to withdraw, and it's really just getting numbers.
Should the town of Belgrade amend the town of Belgrade solid waste and recycling ordinance, section 4, A, permits for use of transfer station to read, unless specifically authorized by an agreement, approval by the board of select persons acting in the best interest of the town of Belgrade. The following applies to the transfer station. Only individual residents, seasonal and year-round, and business residents of Belgrade and their authorized agents may use the Belgrade transfer station. Use of the transfer station shall be limited to the disposal of waste generated exclusively within the town of Belgrade and shall be regulated by means of a permit system. All vehicles transporting solid waste to the transfer station shall be required to display a transfer station permit sticker as directed by regulation adopted by the Board of Select Person. An applicant for a permit sticker shall present to the designated town official the current registration of the vehicle to which the sticker will be affixed. If the registration does not show the correct address, an applicant must provide proof of residence. Stickers may not be placed on other vehicles, transferred or sold. In the event of a change of ownership or transfer of the vehicle, the permit sticker shall be removed, yes or no? Comments on that? Michael?
Yeah, I have no problem with the article at all, except I think some wording needs to be added in the second paragraph where it says, unless specifically authorized by an agreement. I think that that's got to be clarified what the agreement is. We know it's supposed to be to allow other town residents to participate, but I propose putting in, after the word agreement, to accept recycled materials and waste in a per pay basis approved by the board. Per bag basis, pay per bag basis. In other words, the blue bags. And what I'm thinking is that 2 years from now, if somebody says, what are you doing? You didn't have that authorization. We have to go by what's written, not by what we think we remember. So I thought we should.
Any other comments?
You wanted to say agreements with other towns as opposed to specifying per bag, recyclables, so on and so forth?
Yeah, but agreements
that specifies what the agreement.
Agreements for what with other towns?
Bruce?
I think it, maybe not sure, I think the way Dennis and Mike has got it worded, I think is probably the way it should be, because right now, I didn't attend that meeting of DEP, but, we're also working with DEP on a, potential project. Don't know, because we haven't got any figures or anything like that back yet, but there's also, so that could be a way that we're gonna be accepting recycled product from boat yards. so, but, you know, with the board's approval, so.
So you like it without any addition particularly?
Right, well, yeah, not to towns, but the way Mike had worded it, pay per bag or pay per product.
Right?
Has this never been in the
No.
original?
It's,
So where did this come from? I mean, this is the first time I've really heard about this.
A
Well-
paper bag is somewhere, a
Well-
paper bag is somewhere.
well, here, yeah, it's in the rules. If you remember when I brought the issue, when the fee issue came forward to the board, the change of fees, which I have to do a short mea culpa on later on. But if you remember that issue, I raised the issue of, because you were gonna sign two agreements, renewed
I
agreements
remember
with these
that,
other
yeah,
towns.
okay.
Those agreements are only eligible to be signed pursuant to the rules. The ordinance is the governing law,
Okay.
right? So you have to change the ordinance to allow the agreement. So what I had recommended is that go ahead and sign those agreements because no one has complained over the last 2 years. We'll sign them, but we have to change the ordinance. And if the ordinance doesn't pass, those agreements become null and void.
Okay, so this is changing the ordinance,
This is actually changing the
It isn't
ordinance.
adding an ordinance, it's just changing it to read.
but it doesn't say that.
Article 1, oh, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Should the town of Belgrade amend the town of Belgrade solid waste and recycling?
Okay, so that makes me feel a little better, but I don't see it.
No, we do
Sam
that.
didn't put it pretty chill here, so
That's right.
You have to change the law to make the rules.
get along good.
That word, that might.
Here, you're trying to get back
I
here.
think that's a good idea.
Do we need to vote on that, or do we vote on all three?
I think we'll vote on all three.
Oh, we do.
Article 3, shall the town allow, wait a minute, there's a change there. Shall the town of Belgrade vote to permit Belgrade Historical Society, the society, to undertake certain restoration and renovation projects at the old townhouse located in Cemetery Road. So the building can be used by the society for storage and display of its collections and other society activities, providing the plans that have been submitted to the, and approved by the Board of Select Persons, and all financial planning and other costs associated with the restoration and renovation projects are the responsibility of the society. Comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Barrett?
Just explain it, I had suggested that because the article as written, asked the town to allow the Belgrade Historical Society to spend its money. The town really doesn't have the right to do that, it's a private organization, and the money is yours. What this does is, this gives them the permission they're really looking for, which is to modify the building to make it more useful to them.
So this handout one is the one you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically the type of what I wrote.
This will be out, this will be out.
This
Yes,
is
Article 3.
I don't know about that. I'll make a motion to accept all three articles as amended.
I'll second it.
Moving and seconded to accept all three articles. Any more discussion? All those in favor? None.
Can I have a copy of that revision? Mike, do you have an extra
Oh,
one?
you can-
Here you go, Eric.
All right.
That's it.
Luca.
Okay, Luca, local updating addresses. Local update of census addresses. This is an operation that I've never been involved with before. I don't know if this is the first time or not. There's been a lot of discussion on the town managers and city managers listserv surrounding this. Most towns that I've seen on the server, I'm not saying it as across the board, but what I've seen on the server is many towns are saying, no, we're not going to participate because it takes a lot of additional work. There's a form for me to fill out that says, even if you're not going to participate, you should fill out this form and tell us who is going to do it. One of the options is a KV-COG, Council of Governments, or the county. So I called up KV-COG and they didn't know too much about it and said that if you were going to do it for you, we'll probably charge you money. And then I went to the county and the county also didn't know too much about it. So what I'll probably do is say we're not going to participate, and I may or may not fill that form out. If you choose not to participate, the question is, do you want us to participate in the local update of census addresses or not? And I gave you the portion that told you what the potential benefits are.
I'll make a motion that the board denies.
Does not participate.
Does
I'll
not.
second it.
Moving to second, we do not participate. Discussion.
What's the downside of not participating?
Well, in this thing, what they say is census numbers are important for congressional districts, et cetera, in towns, because depending on what tract you're in and how much you could have a possibility of, greater possibility of getting grant awards and things like that, because almost everything relies on numbers, census numbers. So, in terms of grants and all of that. I don't see how we could actually be affected by that, personally, so I mean, my recommendation is to not participate. And whatever, those addresses will be updated by either the county or the state, whoever's doing that. But they can get that information, so. to
Well,
the
the next
degree it's
census
accurate.
is 2020 anyway.
Well, this is
3 years late
preparation,
from-
it's preparation for that.
Yeah, yep.
I didn't get upgraded last time, and I won't get upgraded this time, because I have my mailing address is a P.O. box. I do not have a box on the street. So what happens when the inquiry comes in from the Census Bureau to the post office, they say no box on the street, and send it back. And that's the end of it. So I wasn't counted last time. I don't know if there are others like that, but I know there are other people in town. There are other people in town that have a mailbox and not a street box. So in my mind, one person is significant, a dozen's more significant. I don't know how that affects, our standing. I think the benefit, one of the benefits of doing this, at least, is to correct that particular situation. My address should be listed as P.O. Box 246 with the street address. P.O. Box 246 Belgrade Lakes, 6 Maplehurst Drive, Belgrade. That's my true address, that's the way I
That's, I mean, it would correct that.
Yeah.
The question is how much resources would you want to put into that? I don't know.
What is it gonna cost us?
I have no idea. It's gonna take manpower,
Yeah.
all of that. So I don't know. I mean, I've been trying to find those answers out. Other towns are saying it's gonna take too many resources for us, so.
No,
I have no way of knowing because I've never, gone through it, so.
that's my comment. I mean, I don't know how many people are involved, but there
Well,
are a lot of
it's
people.
probably a fair amount.
It's resource intensive because you have to go, I started to go to work for the Census Bureau for the last census. I quit. It was just amazingly,
Probably fired.
huh?
Probably, yeah.
No, I wasn't fired.
He tried to use a boat because he was a sailor.
Oh, yeah. Couldn't
Yeah.
couldn't get up to the Belgrade Lakes, but.
Okay, so is there any more discussion on this? We move to second, we not participate. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Question?
Wait, just, Jack?
Yeah. I just wonder how many post office boxes are there in Belgrade and Belgrade Lakes?
No idea.
Well, the post office would be able to tell.
Well, we could ask, certainly. I just have no idea.
That would tell something about the significance of this issue.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
No,
Of,
I'm against it.
what's? We are voting on not participating.
Oh, this, yeah.
All those in favor of not participating, 4? Yes, we got your vote, Michael. Thank you.
Jack, I'll check that out.
KB cog representative.
This is purely an issue of governance. It's a matter of who wants to be an elected official who would like to be on the KV cog board for this board, for the town of Belgrade, and the second representative is an official. My sense is that you would probably say the town manager should be on that as an official. So who would be one of the elected official?
I would think the chair.
Meals, who likes meals, free meals?
Michael's volunteering.
I'm volunteering if nobody else wants to.
Okay. So we have our 2.
I've done it top 3 or 4 years.
Oh, did you really? Did you like it?
It's,
Well, I mean, if you were to do it again.
no.
Don't fight over it.
I wouldn't fight over it. I like it.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is abatements. We have a number of them. You all have the list of abatements.
I'd recommend all of them, but the one for Bruce Kalouche.
He's got, he would be the one that I'd probably.
That should go to the whole town. That should go to the whole town. Should be
be a referendum.
It kind of looks like they're just mistakes,
Yeah, there are errors and
so.
omissions.
Arnie?
I spoke with the assessor today, and basically, like you're saying, this is just cleaning up the books.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
So I think instead of doing them just one at a time, I think we just approve them.
that's fine.
Make a motion to accept them all.
Yeah.
Is there a second? I'll second that. All those in favor?
Just remember, you got a lot of paperwork to sign after.
That's four.
Just so you get a heads up, the board gets a heads up.
Can I get the warrant, please?
The board, please.
Very, just so the board gets a heads up. 2 years in a row now, I've had abatement. I'll be back again next month.
That one will vote down.
At least he didn't get my, actually, he got my tax bill.
Oh, wow, that was good.
Well, I came in and,
We've gotten a lot of issues that are being straightened out.
This guy's a lot better.
Boy,
We passed the abatements in your absence.
I would have voted for it.
he did all of them.
Yeah. Bruce is good.
It was a mistake. Well,
Want to read that, please?
I voted no for you on that one.
Thank you.
We're on the warrants.
warrant number 99. Wow. $26,807.11.
I'll second that.
Looks small as they come.
Are there questions or comments on the warrant, please?
What is ballistic line?
Where are you?
Page 1?
That's for when I had my exuberance. You have that?
When it goes ballistic, that's ballistic's in abatement is what it is.
I don't know.
It's
It's
ballistic.
about halfway down, a little under halfway down
Oh,
under
yeah.
card member services.
4 or 5
Ballistic line.
It's only $29, $30, but
Says facility supplies operating, ballistic line.
I think it was
I can-
ballistic line. So that's check number. $16,395. $16,395.
Card member services.
$94.
is that another question or is that the answer?
No, it's under card member services.
Must
Maybe detonator wire.
Did you have a question?
No.
Yeah. I saw that. I'm not asking the question.
It has to be something to do, it looks like with the fire department, because I can't find
No, it says
it.
facilities.
Well, it's under the facilities maintenance and fire department too.
Page 1, right there, right by the, this-
Tractor supply, it doesn't give me, I don't know, I can find that out for you if you want.
Well, it's only $30, I don't want to hold everything up, but I kind of like to know where it is.
I'll find out what it is for you.
All right, I have
ballistic line supplies and operating.
I have a question also on central main disposal, on the bottom, page 1, and the top of page 2. They charge $75, it looks like, to service the fire department, the depot. It's some park, I guess, but it must be Peninsula Park, there's a hole in the middle of
Right.
it. Long Pond Beach, the fire department in North Belgrade. What do they do for the $75, go up and empty a barrel?
No.
It's their porta potties.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's worth it.
Any more questions, comments?
What is it? Oh, it's a, ballistic line is a weed trimmer. It must be Gary.
Oh,
It's a
Stuff that goes.
weed whacker trimmer.
They say weed whacker. Thank you very much.
It's what their company name is. Thank you.
Page 3. 0459, repair. What are they repairing?
It's all 034. Repair on what?
Page 3, third one down.
So that's check number 1614, oh, right there, facilities, 2745, 1643.
CPAS repairs,
What?
CPAS repairs.
Tape adapter, that's my, what I mean, next one.
Looks like for the center of all seasons.
It is what it is, yeah.
It is St. Paul's.
Repairs up there.
Yeah.
Says it right
Building,
on.
it says
You
repairs.
look down underneath, go down,
St. Paul's
yeah.
seasons.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I didn't mean to take your time.
no,
Okay.
I'll
I
skip
thought you
it.
wanted the specific on it.
No, it's all right, it just said repair, I didn't see the rest. I have, Union Farm Equipment, Walker repair.
Yeah, that's a
Lawnmower.
tractor, that's a lawnmower.
Yes.
Lawnmower.
And, 459 on page 6, Dolan.
sounds like a nice dish detergent,
Is that what that is? Okay. Okay.
that would be my guess.
Okay.
Long day.
Yes.
It's Louis.
One of your generation.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any more?
No.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to accept it, all those in favor? And it's unanimous. Town managers report.
Okay, I'll try not to be lengthy, but I have asked for an executive session for personnel reason at the end of my, or whatever that is at the end of the meeting. Okay, so hold on one second while I get prepared. There is a thank you card I'm going to pass around from Gary Smith, who says thank you for all the money that you helped him get for the school. No, I'm just, but he is giving you, he wants to thank you for being supportive in the last several years.
Must be a different Gary Smith.
No?
So, the Dalton Reynolds, as you know, we had an inspection back in May sometime, or actually before May. We received a letter in May saying that we had these things to fix by a certain time. We didn't, so what they did was they increased the deductible. So we got them fixed. I sent a letter in saying they're all fixed and everything. What they basically have done is said, we're gonna keep it at the 5,000 deductible for a period of time. We're gonna observe what's going on and all of that. So I just wanted to let you know that that issue is there. That's through Maine Risk Management. Okay. Health insurance, just a short comment. Health insurance costs are going up, co-pays, et cetera. I'll be talking about that at some point in the future. Just to let you know that starting January 1, our health care costs for our employees are gonna go up. Okay. Cleaning contract, I've renegotiated cleaning contract, so we're gonna do 2 days a month during June through October, I think it is, and then through the winter months, November through April, we'll be doing 3 cleaning days. It saves us on an annual basis right around $1,680. And I'm gonna monitor that to see where that brings us. The cost of that is $710 a month. Violations. We have a number of violations in terms of shoreline zoning violations, commercial code violation potential, and, well, actually 2 of those, and the junkyard kind of failure to, the nuisance yard, the dangerous building kind of thing that we're working on. I'll be meeting with DEP to go through 4 shoreline zoning violations tomorrow. We had one on Sandy Cove. I met with him and Gary, and we told him essentially that he needed permits for everything. He's gonna get a penalty for every permit that he failed to get it. He's gonna get penalties for the actions taken, the actual shoreline zoning violations. And he has to remove certain things that were not compliance. So he's in the process, as I understand it, he was going to remove some stuff on Saturday. You may hear some more about that because there's a group of folks down there that are upset with it, and rightfully so, but we're taking action. I've tried to convey to that group that we're taking action. And I'll be meeting in part tomorrow to talk about the level of penalties with the DEP, what they have gotten in the past for similar violations, so that I can measure what my consent agreement will entail, and if we have to go to court, we'll seek significantly larger penalties. We have some,
I'd just like to comment, thank you, Danny, for being on top of this. This is an issue that the board has recognized in the past, that when you're dealing with these types of things, we do have an account for those monies.
yes, I know,
So
yes,
that's
the legal costs, yeah. So, there's the Manchester Road issue. I've talked to, that mess on Manchester Road where the Borzines used to live. Talked to the mortgage company and told them that I was gonna seek legal action if they didn't start doing something. They told me last week that they were gonna clean it up. So I'm going to monitor that, and if they haven't come in within a few days, I'm gonna give them a call. We have a similar situation up on Smithfield Road that I've sent a letter out telling the guy he has to come forward with a plan. You may know the place.
I think I know exactly what you're talking about.
So I have sent him a letter saying his failure to respond to Gary's letter caused my letter, and his failure to respond to my letter will invoke penalties that in statute are $100 to $2,500 per day. Not that we would necessarily do that, but I wanted him to know that that's the level that he had. Now, we have a commercial ordinance violation and a potential shoreline zoning violation down in the village that we'll be looking at. We have another violation, shoreline zoning, that is on Messalonsky Lake. They also brought up one on Snug Harbor that looks pretty serious to me, although I don't know, it occurred back in 2014-15, but we didn't take any action at the time, so we still have the ability to take action, so I'll be visiting that with him tomorrow. And then we have one on Knowles Road, that's the commercial violation that I've sent a letter to saying, again, that if you fail to respond within a certain number of days, there will be action taken. So that's that. We did have a farmer's market complaint. You heard the discussion about congestion and issues. The complaint that I have is essentially, it's come to a point where it's starting to interfere and disrupt our home life when the farmer's market is there. So just putting that out there, it's a complaint about the activity itself. I don't know what we can do about it. I could actually look into it if you want, but I'm not going to recommend it. Believe me.
Well, it is a problem.
It is a
Another
significant
problem
problem.
that was brought up tonight to Ernie and I, it is a problem.
It is.
You can't just let it, I mean, at some point you're gonna have to do something with it.
Can we just discuss that just briefly? I think the board should talk with the organizers of that and see if we can't come to some kind of terms where it is an issue.
Yeah.
Rather than just let it fester. The organizers possibly could give them.
Yeah, I'm going to actually, if you would like, I'll take the initials, and then if we have to have a follow-up letter from the board, we'll do it that way.
And
I'll
in
talk-
fact, that would clear up a whole bunch of the parking
I
problem.
think you're right.
Huge amount of it.
He transferred it, it would transfer it.
Well, it might transfer, but out on, if it goes to Center for All Seasons, that's a pretty,
Yeah, if
a
it
lot of
went up
parking
there.
on both sides out there, so.
If-
Parking in the yard.
If their hope is that it stays in the village and it goes to the new.
Yeah, I think that's probably,
That's gonna be a
would
problem.
be something they would,
Yeah,
they like the fact that it's there because people come to it.
yeah,
And so they go to the businesses around it.
yeah.
But it is, it's,
Well, there could be a potential problem by taking it to the Center for All Seasons, because remember, they try to raise funds to meet the intent, which is to be self-funding, and to take every Sunday during the summer, when they have other activities going on there,
Yeah.
maybe an impact.
Another possibility is the triangle across from where the.
That's been
restaurant-
suggested.
And the Matsons have indicated that that'd be something they'd be willing to consider.
Well, the Matsons no longer own that. But-
Yeah, but I mean,
I know what you're saying. Okay.
But that, there's a parking problem there too. Right now, if you've got the Catholic Church in, you're not gonna get any parking down that road.
That's right. Yeah. It's just-
Sorry, Danny.
No problem, I wanted to make a note so I wouldn't forget something.
The road's a little wider there, too.
Okay. Valencia, as you know, Valencia Schubert has issued her she's resigning, but it's not for cause, it's just because she's getting another job. So on Friday from 11 to 1, we have a party planned, a going away party planned at the Center for All Seasons. There'll be a cake, I guess I have to order the cake, right?
I got the plan, yeah.
I gotta not forget the cake. No, don't let me forget the cake. Cake, I'll write the cake down here, because I did have it in my calendar, I thought. So I've gotta get the cake. But,
From what time?
we have a plaque, 11 to 1. We have a plaque, similar to the plaque you guys gave me when I left. And,
We have to be in that one.
no, not me.
Not yet.
We have that plaque back.
After that traffic jam is
Scratch through the dates on this.
Hey, look it, you know, we have to work through these problems. Right? The only way you can do it is with proposals. Yeah, it's from 11 to 1, there'll be a cake and a plaque, and there we go. We've sent that notice out to all the departments and the select board. Okay, this is just to throw this out to you right now. We've had a complaint about fire department EMT coverage of events for nonprofits. The particular event was the one held 2 weekends ago. The tent party, old-fashioned tent revival meeting. But it has nothing to do with that, it was just, that was the particular event where people started talking about this issue. And so I'm working with the fire department and EMT to talk about how we handle that general issue of coverage for nonprofits. Now, they recognize the need to do that because on one hand, they get a lot of donations from the nonprofits. On the other hand, there's coverage issues, a growing problem with gaining volunteers, and that's where the kind of rub is coming.
Getting volunteers to go down and.
Volunteers
Yeah, I got
with
it.
the fire department, but
Yeah.
particularly on certain days to get them to go down there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they're having problems getting volunteers, not, and it's growing, I understand.
Are they paid when they go down?
They're paid, but they're paid at the fireman rate, which I think is $10 or $11. I don't think it's much.
It's just the rate, volunteers and fire and rescue are just going downhill. There's so much to it now.
Yeah.
It isn't just.
It's hard, it's really gonna be a retention and recruitment issue that we're gonna have to face.
They need to cut back on some of the rules and regulations.
And-
We didn't do it, we
Ordinance.
didn't fix it.
Some of the laws.
Get out of here.
And actually, I received I think it was Bruce gave me I think it was Bruce, actually suggested that perhaps if they did the mandatory training once every 3 years, like some states do, then that may in fact invigorate. So I'm going to propose that to a legislator and see if they can put that bill in. Make sure I don't forget that.
You know anybody?
And I know, yes,
Yeah.
I do, have a few. Okay, within the next week or so, Melanie and I are gonna reach out to the budget committee, and we're gonna start planning the budget development process. We're gonna move earlier on it this year. I've already told the departments to start getting their budget requests together, so that we can hopefully wrap this up, and I'm not gonna guarantee it will be, because a lot depends on the meetings as we go forward. But working with the budget committee, I think that will help us frame the timeframes, the best days and stuff, to have meetings with you folks, and we'll give them a chance to look at the stuff and make their recommendations from a knowledge base. And so that'll be going on over the next week, week and a half. I wanna set up a schedule, and I wanna start getting this thing put together. I'd like to get it done by November 15th with a public hearing within the first 10 days of January, so that if we need to go to another public hearing, we'll have the time. So that's the plan. Okay, things are looking pretty good. Remember last time I talked to you, it looked like we were getting a little thin there, and I was quite concerned. Taxes went out, and the taxes are coming in, and we've paid the school, we're paying the county, and we have a fairly decent cushion right now, and we haven't obviously got all the taxes in. So we've been collecting somewhere around, actually for a couple of days, they were collecting 200, 300,000 a day, in that range, right? For the last 4 or 5 days?
Yeah.
And maybe the first part of last week. So that's that. So I just wanted to say, one thing I am going to start doing, because when I was here last time, we used to give you quarterly budget updates. So you know where we stood in terms of expenditures in various departments and stuff. My understanding, that hasn't happened for a while. I don't know, maybe it has. But starting in September, I'm gonna ask Melanie to come in and we're gonna make a quarterly update. If that's something you want, if you don't want it, just don't.
I think it's a good idea.
Yes, please.
We don't want to be shocked about it.
Right.
Ben's gonna get old.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna make sure that.
We have specs for that done.
Yeah, that I think, yeah, right after the audit, we asked that come in periodically.
Well, I think
It
quarterly,
did come in, yeah.
I think quarterly is a frequency that would be acceptable. Email addresses, right now, my email address group for select board, whoever set it up, has it going to your personal addresses. There's nothing going to your town of Belgrade addresses. I'm gonna set up a select board address group that has all of your town of Belgrade addresses, and you can do with what, but I think it should be going through that, rather than just your personal addresses. How that gets set up, we can do it both if you want.
I don't do the town,
Yeah, okay.
so I don't.
See, I don't know how the system works,
Yeah.
whether it picks up everything I send out to you or not, I don't know.
Supposedly, in fact, Gary helped me do it on mine, you can set it in the town computer.
Well, you can go into first class
Yeah.
and set it to forward into your normal email address, and it does keep a copy in there.
But that's at his computer.
Yeah, you do it on his computer, yeah, but it is not, it's cumbersome.
You do it on the town computer.
Well, you can do it on any
Yeah,
computer.
but I mean, the thing is, it's forwarded, so I get it on my phone. However, I've noticed there's some things that aren't being forwarded. I get some things on the telephone that should have gone to the town computer and didn't.
I have no idea. I mean, we can work through that, talk to
You know,
someone.
I don't want to take time now, but I mean, it's.
But I just wanted to let you know that I think they should be all going there, and I can put both address groups in the address line. I just think that they should be going to the town. email addresses.
All right, it's good to have the record.
So, this one here. I did this. Budget. Okay, I signed a proposal from Musharos. There was a low bid on getting that leak. It was the one leak that we're fixing up at the salt sand shed. The previous contractor had said $700 and some odd. Musharo came in at $534, so I allowed that to go forward. He'll be doing that, as I understand it, on September 16th. I also signed off on, and maybe I shouldn't have, but I did, Main and U crack sealing. There's a series of things that Horace wanted crack sealed. So we got that here. It's a $6,500 contract. So that's signed off on. Is that okay with you folks? I won't do it again if it's.
The roads, crack sealing in the roads.
Crack sealing in the roads.
They've already done it too, haven't they?
Yeah.
I don't, I really
You just
haven't been
did
able
that,
to.
They've been doing it, right along, I think.
Okay. Here's the mea culpa I'm gonna do. At the meeting in July, I think Bruce is still here. At the meeting in July, we had you review at a meeting, transfer station fees. And you accepted the fee increases and all that. At the time, there was a question about whether or not these should go to a public hearing to vote on by the town. I think without remembering, I said, I think they have to go to a public hearing. I think Bruce kind of said, yeah, I think that's true. Well, I got to reading the ordinance for a lot of reasons. I got to reading the ordinance. And the ordinance only requires that it goes to the select board, and there was a public meeting with the select board, and you can move it forward without a public hearing. So, Michael, and we're moving those, so the problem is I held those fees up. Now I've told them to go forward. That was just my fault. I should have went right to the,
You're gonna make up the difference.
I will make up the difference if you want, and I'll ask Melanie to write that check.
Yeah, that's exactly what I do.
Okay. With that, the end of my updates, except for the request that I had for an executive session.
Let's take about 5 minutes, and then we'll go into executive session. Those of you that need to,
Thanks, Jim.
yes.
Question, is there a particular reason why the agendas for these meetings are not appearing on the website?
Tony?
I think
We should
May was the last last agenda.
Have you been putting them up? on the
I have
website?
not,
Oh, you should.
no,
Why not?
I have no idea.
And the minutes should
Send
be,
them to that group, that's about it.
no, you should be putting the
Yeah.
agendas up in the minutes of the meetings like you were doing.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
5 minutes. Thank you folks
Thank you.
for coming.
Thank you.
You gentle people.